Solitude, that paradoxical companion of human existence, is often perceived as an ambivalent experience, bearing both comfort and distress. It is a state where the individual finds themselves alone, far from social interactions and interpersonal bonds, immersed in the internal silence of their thoughts and emotions. Solitude can take various forms, voluntary or imposed, presenting itself as a space for rejuvenation or, conversely, as a source of discomfort and isolation. Solitude often sparks complex reflections on human nature, social connection, and the balance between the need for isolation and the need for connection. In this duality between refuge and ordeal, solitude offers fertile ground for self-discovery, personal growth, and sometimes even profound revelations about the very nature of our being. In life, the people around us can have a huge impact on our feelings and problems. It may seem strange, but it is essential to understand that our difficulties in everyday life do not only come from ourselves, but also originate from the people we associate with. The behavior of others has an impact on what we feel inside. So even if some of us have self-destructive tendencies, it is crucial to remember that our self-image also depends on external influences. Nietzsche said, "A dark singularity, a joyless soul, suffices to fill an entire home with persistent discouragement, darkening the sky of optimistic prospects." This statement depicts the vulnerability of our emotional state, emphasizing the disproportionate impact that a single negative entity can have on our collective emotional state. The dangers of a difficult social environment go beyond simply experiencing negative emotions. They become hidden obstacles that prevent us from reaching our own goals. The influence of our surroundings on our own development cannot be underestimated. If our close ones all seem to be below their full potential, if passivity, disinterest, constant anxiety, or lingering worry characterize our daily relationships, it becomes extremely difficult, if not nearly impossible, to imagine standing out from this general norm. In the presence of such individuals, our confidence in our abilities can be strongly limited, thus hindering our capacity to believe in an improved version of ourselves. It is in this context that the urgent necessity arises to break the chains of a stifling social environment. Breaking ties with such an environment might be the crucial first step towards the emancipation of our inner faculties, paving the way for a deeper realization of our being. According to Carl Jung, a more complete individuation is essential. Jung poignantly questions why reaching this state of individuation is so vital. His response resonates as a universal truth, an inherent necessity for human flourishing. When a person is contaminated by external norms and expectations, they are thrust into situations and actions that contradict their profound nature. The result is internal disharmony, a profound disagreement with oneself, an inability to fully assume one's responsibility. The discordance with one's own being is an intolerable neurotic condition for the individual in search of liberation. This liberation can only arise when they grant themselves the privilege of being and acting in accordance with their authentic self, in conformity with their deepest essence. Thus, individuation is not only desirable, but a vital necessity to enable man to free himself from the chains of internal alienation. It is a quest for coherence, a search for harmony with oneself that transcends the constraints imposed by a stifling environment. In the quest for our true essence, acting in harmony with our authentic being is already a monumental effort spanning a lifetime. However, when this noble quest is hindered by toxic and corrupting influences, it becomes a colossal challenge. So, when our social environment seems to obstruct our path to self-fulfillment, what are the possible alternatives? The ideal would be to find refuge in a new social universe, a space where we could evolve surrounded by people who inspire us, embodying the qualities we aspire to cultivate. Getting closer to those who seek self-fulfillment themselves can inspire and motivate us. However, this approach is not always achievable. In a world where many seem to be confronted with internal conflicts, finding a healthy and positive social group can be a formidable challenge. If the search for a more conducive environment for our growth proves unsuccessful, another option presents itself, reducing our time spent in the company of others and favoring solitude. This choice may appear to be the recipe for mental deterioration, as our society often considers a life without interpersonal connections as a path leading to isolation and mental degradation. However, opting for a more solitary existence, provided it is used constructively, can turn out to be a powerful catalyst for personal growth. Withdrawing from others thoughtfully and intentionally, this retreat to a more solitary existence offers fertile ground for individual flourishing. It is a space where our thoughts can blossom, our reflections can take flight, and where we can forge a life imbued with more meaning and depth. It is in this chosen solitude that sometimes the brightest and most innovative ideas are born, and the fabric of a more authentic and fulfilled existence is woven. Solitude constitutes a precious resource, a haven when major upheavals disrupt our lives, demanding a metamorphosis of our mental attitudes. In these moments, a profound reassessment, a questioning of the very meaning of our existence, may become imperative. In a culture where social bonds are often considered the solution to all emotional problems, convincing people that solitude can be as beneficial as emotional support remains challenging. Imagine for a moment that I feel discomfort with who I usually am or perceive unexplored areas of my life or personality. To explore these unknown territories, a step is necessary. Distancing myself from my usual framework to observe what emerges from this distance. However, this exploration comes with risks. Any attempt to mentally reorganize or adapt thinking requires a certain initial disorder. Before experiencing it, no one can say if this necessary disruption of existing patterns will lead to subsequent improvement. A conceivable strategy to restructure our habits could be to more definitively distance ourselves from social relationships that have marked our past. Instead, directing our efforts and concentration towards the development of a passion and a goal. For our lives, this radical shift in our life perspective is a delicate yet revealing endeavor. It is a deep dive into oneself, a bold exploration of the multiple facets of our identity. It's the idea that beyond human relationships, other elements can nourish and give meaning to our existence. I am rather hesitant to believe that intimate relationships are the sole source of well-being and happiness. Nowadays, love seems to be placed on a pedestal as the only path to salvation. When Freud was questioned about the foundations of psychological health, he mentioned the ability to love and work. Unfortunately, we have placed too much emphasis on the former and neglected the latter. By exclusively focusing on interpersonal connections, we have overlooked other paths leading to personal fulfillment. Many individuals have chosen an alternative path by centering their lives around their work. They have discovered a meaningful and significant existence. Coming from challenging social backgrounds, some have found meaning through their work, realizing that creativity and the inner order it generates can act as an effective remedy to the disorder of a suffering social world. Many people living in a relatively ordinary social environment consciously prioritize their professional aspirations to give meaning to their lives. Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, two eminent researchers dedicating their lives to understanding human development, took this path. It is remarkable to note that in their autobiographies, these two pioneers of psychoanalysis barely mentioned their partners, family, or any other elements, focusing instead on the development of their respective ideas. We can applaud their discretion and understand their desire to preserve their privacy, but we can also legitimately deduce their priorities. If we choose this trajectory and use a retreat into solitude to reorient our existence around a vocation, this process can simultaneously be a catalyst for improvement in our social life. By discovering intrinsically rewarding work and investing the necessary time to excel in our field, we strengthen our self-confidence and reduce our dependence on external validation. As we progress on the path of our personal fulfillment, we naturally draw closer to other individuals engaged in a similar quest. Gaining autonomy and reducing our dependence on others, as those who find meaning and fulfillment through their work do, can directly benefit our existing relationships. Perhaps our idealization of interpersonal relationships in Western culture contributes to the instability of marriages, yet considered the most intimate bond. If we stop placing marriage as the alpha and omega of happiness, fewer of these unions would end in pain and tears. Thank you for watching. See you very soon, and from here to there, be wise.